Hello collective, it's Kai. So I'm gonna go first and foremost. This is just a little disclaimer. I'm going through my own personal experience right now, and I wanted to kind of talk about it because, to be honest, it's about friendship, and I personally don't have necessarily a lot of connections that I can actually refer to in order to, I guess, gain a better perspective from different experiences. The way that I have gone about friendships has been honestly not the healthiest in the past, and so I've been really making an effort to actually redirect my focus back into me, and therefore love myself, give myself that joy, give myself that peace, so that I may provide that space for others. So in light of that, this video is about kind of not making assumptions, not jumping to conclusions, not doing the extremes of ultimatums and pretty much cutting people off, right? Like, that's something that I've made a strong effort to step away from because that's how I used to be in the past, especially because I moved around. I honestly had this mindset of, when I moved, it'd be like, oh, we're not gonna see each other, so we're not gonna be able to really connect in the same ways. I am developing this new understanding of distance doesn't necessarily equal dissonance. And so because of that, I've been making efforts, making choices, in other words, to change so that it aligns more with my values. And I value honest, vulnerable connection and communication, and I value being able to speak up for oneself. So letting me know if I am doing something that doesn't work with you, so setting boundaries clearly and maintaining those boundaries. I was previously in a connection that I had to walk away from because I recognized that this lack of consistency, lack of effort isn't going to work for me. And because of that, I finally understood how that has been bled. It has bled into my different connections, because it was such a integral, deep connection with this being that I, one, respected, wanted to support, wanted to provide that support in the ways that worked for them, and also to respect myself. You know, like, I made that choice because I recognize that I don't feel safe to be me. I don't feel safe to also evolve in this space. So in other words, not projecting the past experiences from ego, therefore fear, and perpetuating a cycle, so therefore being a part of the freaking matrix. And this is just how I've come to this video, where I'm like, I wanted to talk about a few of the things that I wrote in my journal, and I was like, don't assume, feel how you feel, express calmly, not to attach or accuse, trust your intuition, move with grace, remember yourself, your soul, receive, reciprocate yourself, allow space, clear and cleanse and recalibrate, love, peace, and joy, be honest, continue to be vulnerable. And so I am not going to necessarily talk about the personal experience that I'm going through actively, because I still am making a choice. I'm reflecting, I am giving myself that love that I'm recognizing that I need, and also understanding that there is a lack of clarity. So with the lack of clarity, I haven't been inquiring properly. And because of that, I'm like, okay, so how can I communicate this without being in the space of accusatory like remarks, not trying to like project my own fears into this situation. It's more so be vulnerable, speak from I statements. Those are things that I'm keeping in mind as I'm journaling, as I'm reflecting, as I'm also allowing spirit source to connect with me. So releasing the fears, but acknowledging those fears, right? So I have a fear of friendships because I I haven't necessarily had one that I've actually been able to properly maintain in my life. I don't believe that that's necessarily because like I'm toxic or something like that. Like, I'm not here to label myself, right? I'm not going to speak about myself in that manner, but I am understanding that that just doesn't work for me anymore. Like, I want and desire relationships and friendships, connections where I can be myself, right? And so when I'm recognizing that I am not choosing to be myself, it is a form of also understanding that my intuition is telling me something. And I don't wish to move in that headspace of egoic fear or how do I describe this? Egoic fear and people pleasing, so past conditionings, habits, things like that. I am choosing differently so that I can actually allow that change to happen for me, right? So with that in mind, I have pulled a few cards just to maintain this intention in this video. And I'm understanding that because of that confusion, it brought me to this place where I understood that there's an unknown factor here, right? So I'm not here to control people. I am recognizing, though, that my words are very powerful and that they trigger people sometimes, and not because that's the only response or reaction that I get, but it's also acknowledging that experience where I'm like, okay, that's not how I wish to actually communicate with people. Therefore, from that point, I was like, but every person is different. How they commune with others, how they communicate, how, what presence, place, they're at in this very moment is significant, so that I can actually allow there to be a space, a safe space, not only for me to be vulnerable and recognize this is a safe space for me to be vulnerable, but also to reciprocate that, to allow that reciprocation, that reciprocity to occur. So, yeah, like that lack of inquiry, that lack of that conversation, therefore, is making me recognize that my boundaries, you know, like, I'm not okay with the lack of communication when you don't have the space, right? And I can't speak for you, you know, like, I can only truly speak for myself. And so that's why for a period of my life, I am acknowledging that that's what my main focus was just to speak my own presence. And it was actually brought to my attention an experience where someone was telling me that if they were in the place of my friend, right? And I had just been like, okay, I don't have the space for this anymore. I'm gonna go spend some time alone. The way that they perceived it, or their perspective on that, was that, oh, I would be like questioning and wondering, like, oh, did I like do something? Like, do they not like want to be around me anymore and stuff like that, right? And I was like, oh, is that how people can take that? Because from my own point of view, I was like, well, I'm like, the way that I recharge so that I can actually be like pretty much a more energetic version of myself, I was like, well, I just need that space so that I can actually provide that. But it's like, I'm recognizing duality in that. I'm like, oh, I perceive myself to be someone who not only needs that space, but also wants to be in a certain space to be around others, right? And it was just brought to my attention, and it was just really nice to hear someone say that to me and share their own perspective on it. And so I just released my own perception of it being a certain way, where, in other words, me notifying someone, be like, hey, like, I just need some time alone, and then the follow-up, right? And just being like, I would love to connect another time when I have the space. Would you be okay with scheduling another time? So that's just kind of how I am, and that's something that I'm continuing to practice and implement, because it's not just about me. Obviously, like, a connection is between me and another person. So that was something that I'm acknowledging. And moving on from that, I was recognizing that there are so many good moments that I am not recalling because my mind, right, is so stuck up on and attached to things not working out. I have this egoic fear of things just falling apart. And so and people just kind of leaving like out of nowhere. And so I am not here to perpetuate that cycle. I had to recognize that I too need to recognize as well and acknowledge that there's an infinite amount of possibilities that could happen. I could go and I could just experience this person, and it just is honestly like a positive experience so that I can actually acknowledge and I keep saying that word over and over again, but not to like diminish what that word means, but truly acknowledgement to confirm that things aren't as bad as they seem. And so I'm like really releasing that, but also acknowledging that my intuition is telling me that there's information that I do not know yet. And it's not something to force. It's not something that I wish to do anyways, and I'm not here to force a connection or understanding. I'm just here to speak my own self. And so yeah, I've recognized that that is something that I have to offer into the situation. I can't just be like, you know, like I can't just be like, you know, like I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, sometimes this requires me to walk away, and I had to process that. I had to release my attachments so that I too don't experience that pain of attachments that I honestly have conditioned myself to continuously experience by simply reliving the past experiences within my reality in this present moment. If this doesn't make sense to you, then it doesn't make sense, but if it does, my homies, what's up? Yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm recognizing that there is a level of fulfillment that is needed in committing to connections with people. And I'm acknowledging as well and recognizing that I can be a pretty serious person. I take my connections very seriously. I take my commitments very seriously. And as I'm maturing, evolving, adapting, like as a person, as a being, as I get older and maturing in that sense as well, like physically, mentally, emotionally, so therefore spiritually, I'm realigning myself. I'm redirecting my attention to certain avenues so that I can actually show up for me. That's it. Like, I just need to show up for me, and this is just another form of that. There are certain things that I've been choosing that I honestly, in previous years, never thought that I would, because, I don't know, it's just an interesting process, because as I continue on this spiritual journey, it's like, there's things that, like, I used to think of not in the best light, and now it has been brought to light, and therefore not a part of my shadow. So in other words, the parts of myself that I didn't like, right? That's what the shadow is. Sorry. I love it. But it's just, it's interesting because I'm like, I'm not here to limit myself, even from those past versions of myself and into this projected future. I am not here to limit the possibilities. I'm not here to do that to me. Like, I've lived a life up to this point where I felt very controlled, and so I actually believed in the concept of control. It doesn't exist. Just as time is an illusion, it's all about presence. It's this here, now, this present moment right now, where it is. I want to do this more often where I say that, oh man, where's my watch? You know, I can't find my other phone, so I'm just going to say the time. 1:30 in the morning on March 21st, Thursday, 2024. I am in this present moment right here, right now. to kind of maybe also bring up the point of it's not about the reiterations or the cycles that cause one to think like, oh, this is bad, like this is only bad, right? Like even that, like that is just so not aligned with what I believe. Like I don't believe things to always be one way. Like when I say sending love always, it's from that presence of always being infinite, right? So I'm just in this space of understanding, like, I may desire connections, desire commitment, and consistency. But I too am not, like, always like that with myself. Like, sometimes I'm not clear with me. Sometimes I'm not trusting my intuition. Sometimes I'm not listening to my own cues from my body. And that's just me acknowledging the different fractals of self, where I'm not here to focus on like things that make me feel like I lack something, you know? And I was in a very debilitated state at some point where I was so dysregulated, where honestly I'm understanding that that too is a part of the process, that is a part of me progressing through life. And life is not a linear line, it's flow, it's frequency, it's literally the wave. And sometimes I'm higher frequencies, sometimes I'm lower frequencies, and it's not because I am trying to force myself to be something else, you know? When I'm in a like lower state, like I'm not here to force myself to be in a higher state. When I'm in a higher state, I'm not here to force myself to balance out through like the acknowledgement of just the lower frequencies as well. It's like I'm just here to flow. So yeah, I am just gonna say, if this resonated, cool. Like if it didn't, cool. Like like I just really want to make it clear, like I'm simply stating what I'm experiencing now and acknowledging now. And I'm also recognizing that I too need to take inspired action. And so that's why I am showing up in the best ways that I can. We're all trying the best that we can to the best of our abilities in this very moment. And sometimes as we progress, as we become that future self actively, simultaneously as we are in this present moment, I'm just gonna continue. I'm just gonna continue being me, and that's just honestly the only way that I can be, because this is just the information that I have about myself. And when I have the space, I wish to relay it, I wish to express, I wish to also reflect, and to allow there to be a space for reciprocity, for communication, for communion between me and you, the collective, and the community that is being created. I want to continue to cultivate that, because this is my very own platform, this is my very own space, and I honestly was just doing it just to speak to myself, you know? Like that's clearly showing how much I desired connection. And so now that I have partook in that for such a period of time, where I'm actually acknowledging that I've been connecting and communing with myself as well. Duality. I love it. Okay, so I'm just gonna end the video there. Who knows what I'm gonna title this one, Jesus. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you. That's it. Like, I'm sending you the best on your own spiritual journey. Stay safe out there, and much love.